Hello and welcome to the return of the All Sports Betting Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss and I'm joined by Kevin Harper. It's been a couple of years, my old friend, but we're back in business.
We are back. The boys are back in town.
Well, we're back to cover the Cricket World Cup 2019, which is hosted in England. And we're going to be providing this outright tournament podcast with loads of pre-tournament betting picks. And we're going to be having a podcast for every single match, previewing every single match in the tournament. So if you want extensive, in-depth stuff from a betting perspective and also some general cricketing World Cup previews overall, then this is the place to be. So All Sports Betting Podcast, for those who did follow us back in the day, will remember that we covered a lot of different sports. My own speciality resides in football, but I do have a very strong interest in many worldwide sports and good knowledge, especially from a betting point of view. Kev has a lot of experience in especially cricket, golf, just to name an abundance of sports, really. I think Tiddlywinks you'd cover, wouldn't you, if you could? But yeah, it's exciting to be back. And Cricket World Cup 2019, it's a really big one, isn't it, Kev?
Certainly, Steve. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Tiddlywinks World Cup later in the year, but we'll start with the cricket version first. I think what makes it bigger is it's in England, doesn't it? Home of cricket. Should be a really, really good tournament. Like the format as well. Looking forward to, well, a great 6 weeks of cricket.
Just before we do start, a quick word on the format. It's very straightforward this time, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. We're back to 1992 for those that are knowledgeable in their cricket. 10 teams have qualified, 8 by right, 2 came through a qualifying tournament, West Indies and Afghanistan. Everyone plays everyone once in the group stage. When all 45 games are done, the top 4 go through to the semi-finals, 2 semi-finals, the finals on July the 14th at Lords. 2 points for a win, point for a no result, no super overs or anything like that until the knockout stages. So 50 over cricket at its best, I think.
Yeah, it actually sounds rather simple for a change. There's been some very complicated versions of ICC tournaments down the years. Right, well, this is obviously a betting podcast, and I know a lot of people are going to be listening for betting picks, obviously. And, well, we're going to be going through every single team in detail, and there will be individual bets for specific teams as we go down later on. But for those who really just want to get to the meat of it straight away, I'm going to read out some of the main outright picks for Kev. We will be talking about these in detail later. For those who just really want to get on with some bets straight away now, I'm going to read some out to you. Australia to win the World Cup, that's at 4-1. Various different bookmakers. Bangladesh to win the World Cup, 125-1 Betfair Sportsbook. That's a 0.5 each way punt. And also Bangladesh to reach the semi-final of the World Cup, 14-1 William Hill or Bet Victor. Tournament top batsman Steve Smith at 18-1, Shea Hope 33-1, Tamim Iqbal at 66-1, and finally top bowler Pat Cummins, that's at 20-1. Lasith Malinga at 66-1, and I'm going to let you read out the Bangladesh 100-1 guy that you've got because I don't want to make a pronunciation error.
Yeah, you can just call him the Fizz, Mr. Fazur Rahman.
Yeah, well said. All right, well, we're going to talk about those as we progress through the podcast. But for those who want to get off to the betting accounts now and place them, then get going. Right, so it's hosted in England, and England are the favourites to win the tournament, Kev. And the price on England, biggest you can get is 2-1. That's Unibet, I do believe. I mean, England have been playing some great cricket in the build-up to this. What's to like about them? What isn't to like about them?
There's plenty to like about them. Absolutely, there is. Home advantage being the first one. England are unbeaten at home in an awful long time. In fact, they're unbeaten in most series for an awful long time. They absolutely stunk the place out of the last World Cup, didn't they? And they completely changed their style. They're now brute power with the bat. Maybe sometimes they go a little bit too gung-ho. It'll be interesting to see when they get to the knockout stage, because I'm sure they will do, if they rein it in a little bit in knockout cricket. But, you know, they bat from 1 to 11. I mean, more often than not, Adil Rashid's going to be on the card at 11 in this tournament. He's got a first-class 100 to his name. So they bat all the way down. So, you know, awful lot to like about their batting. What's not to like about them were the price, first and foremost. They've not won a knockout game since 2013 in any competition that they've played, and that was the time that England hosted the Champions Trophy in 2013 tournament. They still failed to win, may I add, lost to India in the final when the groundsman had a bit of a mare and turned it into a Delhi Dust Bowl. 2015 they lost to Bangladesh in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. 2017, and in the Champions Trophy, of course, they were down in Cardiff against Pakistan. Everyone basically had England in the final of that tournament, didn't they? Unfortunately, Pakistan didn't get the memo and turned them over quite comfortably. They do have a little bit of a block in knockout matches, particularly when they're setting a score. They don't know whether to go big for 370 or just put 260 on the board and take their chances, and they often get caught in between and end up with sort of 210 or something like that, which is...
You've got to think that the new format will suit England in that way, though, because a lot of people see them as a shoe-in for the top four, and then they don't have to bother with a quarter-final or a knockout match before a quarter-final. They're straight into the semi-finals, and England would only have to win 2 knockout matches to actually win this World Cup. So surely the format will actually at least suit them.
They only had to win 2 knockout matches in the Champions Trophy 2 years ago, though, Steve, and they failed to win the first one. It's an interesting thing. I'd back England to win any knockout game they play if they're chasing. But if England lose the toss in a knockout game, you know full well they're going to be batting first, because this is going to be a chasing World Cup. It's going to be a theme of the World Cup. There aren't going to be many teams who win the toss and bat first, unless they're playing a real minnow, or they need to, later in the tournament, they need net run rate or something like that. By and large, this is going to be a win the toss chase tournament, because the pitches are going to be so good. So England are the most likely winners of this tournament. Let's get that out there right now. The cricket that they're playing is fantastic, but you are taking 2-1 on a side who are by no means guaranteed to win a knockout game if they're batting first. We saw it against India in that Champions Trophy. We saw it against Pakistan 2 years ago. They do not do very well when they're setting scores. And actually, if you look even more recently, Steve, they put up 370 at Southampton against Pakistan in the series that's just gone. They won by 12 runs. They put up 350 somewhere else, and they only just got over the line in that game as well. They're not good at defending scores. So if you're taking 2-1, yeah, you're going to get a run for your money, because they are absolute certainties to make it into the top 4. I mean, they would literally need injuries to every key player not to make the top 4. But come knockout time, you will be, your heart will be pumping. You will be nervous, because England really need to chase in those knockout games.
I'm interested to hear your take on the Jofra Archer situation, because it's obviously been well talked about in the build-up to the World Cup. He's in the squad. Was it a no-brainer decision, or is it something which could disrupt proceedings?
No, it was a no-brainer decision, yeah. You pick your best players. He's one of our best players. David Willey's the man who's missed out. It's unfortunate that David Willey's missed out. For the record, he wouldn't have been the person who missed out for me. I'd have left someone like Chris Wokes out. I don't think he does the job any differently to anyone else that's in the squad. Whereas Willey at least gives you a left-arm option, and we're going to see an awful lot of left arms go well in this tournament. But yeah, Jofra Archer, he bowls 90 mile an hour without even looking like he's quick. He bats well. He fields fantastically. He's a gun player. He was always going to be in. As soon as England changed their qualification criteria, he was always going to be playing in the World Cup. I don't even know why they didn't even name him in the provisional 15. That's what created all of this. If they named him in the provisional 15-man squad a month ago, someone would have known they were missing out. The uncertainty would have disappeared. So that they opened up a can of worms by not doing that. And, they've had to upset a couple of people, haven't they?
Is there anyone in the England batting order that, I mean, there's so many names, but is there one particular player that has to be in good nick, do you think? Or can this team sort of ride a wave with a couple of guys not in great form?
England can't win the World Cup if Jos Buttler doesn't have a good tournament. It's that simple.
A key man.
Jos Buttler is the person. I mean, England will score well without Jos Buttler, but he's the person who can take those totals to whole new levels. I mean, you're going to be looking at this tournament where on certain grounds 400 is only going to be par, which is ridiculous to sound, but that is how it is. And he's the kind of guy who can take scores from 350 to 450. He showed that in Southampton in that game against Pakistan, when he bruised their bowling attack all around one of the bigger grounds in the country. Imagine what he can do at Trent Bridge, or England don't play at Taunton, but Trent Bridge, Edgbaston, somewhere like that.
In England, you've said do have a problem defending totals. I mean, they've obviously added Archer to this bowling attack, but the rest of the attack, What's the problem there, though? Or is it just a general theme of worldwide cricket now that it's really hard to defend totals on good pitches?
Yeah, I mean, it is. England's big problem is that apart from Archer now, they don't have a death bowler. You know, they can get carted for any number of the death. And also, by and large, they're not very disciplined with the new balls, so teams can get away from them. And the bowlers just aren't very good under pressure. I mean, if you think back, I mean, it's a completely different format, I grant you, but if you think back a few years to the last T20 World Cup, you know, remember the name Carlos Brathwaite, Ben Stokes, defending 18. He didn't even get halfway through the over with any runs intact, did he? It's symptomatic of England's cricket, you know, with the ball, you know, in the death overs when the slog's on. England go around the park. They don't bowl Yorkers per se. Jofra Archer's different, and he might actually have the element that they're missing, but there's still going to be someone at the other end going around the park. You only have to look back to the Pakistan series that's just finished. They should have won at Southampton, even though England put up 373 or whatever the score was. And that's not, you know, it's not a brilliant Pakistan batting lineup. There are better batting lineups in this competition than Pakistan. That would concern me big time.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the David Willey thing, and obviously with him being playing for Yorkshire, there's been plenty of opinion up my way about this, and I don't think anyone had a problem with Archer being in the squad. I think that was a no-brainer, but I think there was somewhat a surprise that Willey was the one left out because of his variation and the fact that he can swing the ball with that new ball more than anyone in the England team, I do believe. So, you know, it would certainly have made sense, I think, to have him in the squad. You know, whether or not he would have actually started that many games, I don't know. But perhaps there's a lack of variation. But despite that, England top four, surely a banky, you think, yeah?
Oh, yeah. There were three teams in this tournament. The first three teams that we're going to cover are absolute certainties for top four. Then there's a gap. There's five teams that can chase the other semi-final slot. But yeah, England will have no problems. In fact, Steve, I think one of the best bets in the competition is England to win the group stage around about the 7-4 mark. If they drop one game, they're not going to drop many more, I don't think.
So that is straight away an extra bet there. England to win the group stage at 7-4. Is there any other specific England bets that you got your eye on or not?
Well, we've mentioned Jofra Archer, but I actually like Adil Rashid to be England's top bowler in the tournament at 11-4. Just for the simple reason that I think England, you've got to think, although their focus is on winning this World Cup, there's an Ashes series that follows 2 or 3 weeks after the World Cup. So where possible, I think England are going to try and rest or rotate their bowlers, particularly, you know, like you say, in the hoo-ha that they've created by bringing Archer in. They'll use their fringe bowlers from time to time just to keep them happy. So I can see Archer missing out on a couple of games. And actually, towards the end of the group stages, when England play Afghanistan, no disrespect to Afghanistan, who we'll come on to in a little while, but if England rest players, it's most likely to be that game that they rest them in. And Adil Rashid's most likely to play all of the games because he's England's leading spinner. I know Moeen Ali's around, but they tried Joe Denley, didn't they, as a sort of make-up third spinner? And, well, I mean, he bowled so many pies, you'd have thought he was down the pucker factory. It was pretty ordinary. Liam Dawson's a decent option, but I still think Adil Rashid's going to play a lot of games. There are a lot of teams in this tournament that can't play spin, even if the ball doesn't turn. And I just think Rashid will pick up wickets against the likes of South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, to name but three. And yeah, although Archer has the edge on him at the death, I think Rashid, you know, he's one of the best bowlers in ODI cricket, has been for quite a while. 11-4 to be England's top bowler. He's the favourite, but I think he's a worthy one.
All right, well, we'll move on to Australia, a team that you have, for those who do read your website. You tipped Australia to win a few days ago, and now that price has come down to 4-1, on Australia. But still a good price, you think, here. I mean, what is to like about Australia? They recently beat England in a warm-up. I don't know whether that has had a factor on the price or not, but what do you like most about this Australia side?
I'd wager it has had a factor on the price. I think you're right. Ironically, England chased in that game as well, didn't they? And still came up short. What I like about Australia is they're a big game team, aren't they? Defending champions, albeit they won it at home last time. They won it in '99. Last time it was in England, beat Pakistan in the final at Lords. When Won it in 2003, won it in 2007. In fact, they've won the last 5 World Cups that haven't been in Asia. They're a dominant force in 50 over cricket. Last year, if this World Cup was last year, they may well have been the laughing stocks of the tournament, but it's come at the right time for them because obviously David Warner's back, Steve Smith's back. 1 or 2 of their bowlers are fit again. Mitchell Starc in particular, he'll be an important player for them in this series. If I'm betting on a side in this tournament, Steve, I want to know that they're going to be able to bowl a side out if they've put up not a low score, because you won't win with a low score in this tournament, but if you put up a par or just slightly below par, are you on a side that can bowl a team out? And in Australia we are. Mitchell Starc can get stuck in early doors. Pat Cummins is going to be a revelation in this tournament. Jason Behrendorff, Adam Zampa, Nathan Lyon, they've got plenty of bowling. Then they've got the all-rounders, Maxwell, Stoinis, Aaron Finch, a couple of others. They've got power at the top. They've got depth at the bottom of their batting. And they've just hit some real nice form. They've just gone to Pakistan, or UAE rather, and beaten Pakistan in an ODI series. Then they went to India. They beat India in an ODI series. That's incredibly hard to do. As you said, they've just turned over England in a warm-up game. Not that I particularly give 2 hoots about that. The warm-up games, my advice is just completely ignore them from a betting proposition. They're not proper games of cricket. They're not registered as true ODIs. They're literally just getting everyone out into the middle and having a hit sort of thing. But even so, it was good that Steve Smith scored a ton in that game, wasn't it? So they tick every box for me, Steve. I'd have them shorter than India in the betting, so I'm still more than happy at 4-1, even though, like you say, I backed them slightly bigger than that.
Do you think this is easily the best bowling attack then in English conditions in this 50 over format?
Yeah, I do, but I also think that we're not really going to be in English conditions in this tournament. We're going to be playing on 11 roads, and that's one of the reasons why I like Australia, because they're full of pace, and it doesn't matter what kind of surface you play on, pace hurts. And I don't think their spinners will necessarily take an awful lot of wickets, but assuming that Starc and Cummins and Behrendorff and whoever else gets stuck in with the new ball, what the spinners can do is kind of slow the run rate down a little bit. And then when Starc comes back at the death, teams are chasing 8, 9, 10 and over, and he's in his element then, isn't he? So I think they're a good side. Interestingly, they've got Ricky Ponting on the coaching staff. I really admire him as a coach. I think he's got a good cricket brain. Obviously, he skippered Australia to 2 of those World Cup successes. I just think there's an awful lot to like about Australia. Australia won't win the big series later on in the summer, but they may well win this World Cup.
Let's talk about one of the outrights we mentioned at the start of this podcast then. Pat Cummins, top tournament bowler at 20-1. I don't know, is that an each way bet, Kev? I presume it is.
It is, yeah. 5 places. All of those top bowlers I should have mentioned is at Betfred, Steve. 5 places if you shop at Betfred. What is
so good about Pat Cummins then, heading into this tournament, do you think?
Well, he's been a bowler that everyone's been raving about for 5-6 years or more, hasn't he? But injuries have killed him. But he's really fit now. Australia are managing him really well. He's not playing big bash cricket, and that's certainly helping him. The series in the UAE that I mentioned just recently, he absolutely skittled Pakistan in that series. Took an absolute bunch of wickets, and he had the Indian batsman hopping about as well. I think the stage is set for him to really, really go well. In fact, I think he's going to have a really good summer because he's going to dominate for Australia in the Ashes as well. And at the prices 20-1, I think is a fantastic bet because I guess the obvious tendency is to take Starc, but A, Starc is the favourite for the tournament. B, he is so injury prone at the minute, it's untrue. And, going back to what I said about Jofra Archer and a few of the England bowlers, Australia have also got the Ashes coming up, and they'll want Mitchell Starc to be playing in the Ashes. So when they can rest him in this tournament, they will rest him. But I don't see that being the case with Cummins. I think he's going to lead their attack, and I think he's going to lead it mighty effectively as well. He'll bowl at he probably won't take the new ball, but I don't necessarily mind that. But he'll bowl sort of first change, but he'll definitely bowl at the death. And we're going to see an awful lot of wickets picked up at the death. That's why the 3 bowlers I'm on are death bowlers. I think he'll beat beaten runners at 20-1, and I think he's a great price. And actually, you can get 5 to 6 on him, getting over 15.5 wickets in the competition. That's my best bet from an Australia team point of view.
There's going to be a couple of pantomime villains in this Australian team. I heard Ian Morgan said he's not going to sledge Australia about Sandpaper Gate. I'm sure some teams certainly will. But, I mean, David Warner and Steve Smith, there's going to be a lot of focus on them. You're backing Steve Smith to be top tournament batsman at 18-1. And I suspect that you think both are probably going to thrive on this attention.
I'm not sure about Warner. I know Warner top scored in the IPL, but I didn't think he played particularly fluently in that tournament. There was an awful. I mean, we're used to Warner scoring 50 off 20 balls, 25 balls, aren't we? But there's an awful lot of run-of-ball innings from him, and not very many boundaries. I'm not altogether convinced his form is as good as perhaps it's made out to be. And maybe if there is a bit of a backlash, he's going to cop more of it because he's the one who's seen as the ringmaster in all of it, isn't he? I just think Steve Smith's a class act. Yes, I know he was involved in all of that Sandpaper Gate, but I think if you're looking at the top 4 batsmen in the world right now and you've not got him in your top 4 batsmen, you're doing it wrong. So I think he's in the top 4 batsmen in the world comfortably, obviously alongside Root, Kohli and Williamson. He strikes me as the kind of combative guy that when he's got a point to prove, he'll go out and prove it. And interestingly, if we look back to the IPL, Rajasthan Royals were terrible until he took over the captaincy. And as soon as he took over the captaincy, they started winning matches again. And then when he left to join up with the Australia squad, they stunk the place out again. So he's a key figure. He really is. He's not captain of this side. That's Aaron Finch. But I actually think that's a good thing. I think Smith can play with the freedom. The more sledging he gets from the crowd, the more it's just going to spur him on. He's going to have a magnificent summer. England fans would actually, bearing in mind with the Ashes to come, England fans probably better off going a bit easy on him because could come back to haunt us down the line. Already got 100 at Southampton against England, so he's in good nick. I think Australia are going to get to the final. You want those 2 extra games when you're betting on the top batsman because it's going to be quite tight at the top, so those 2 extra games could be the difference. And if I quickly go through what led me to these top batsmen, Steve, there's 11 grounds in operation in this tournament: the Oval, Trent Bridge, Lords, Old Trafford, Riverside up in Durham, Taunton, Bristol, the Ageas Bowl, or the Hampshire Bowl as it's called in this tournament, Cardiff, Edgbaston and Headingley. Now I've picked out the top 5 what I think will be the best batting wickets in the competition. So we've got the Oval, Trent Bridge, Old Trafford, Taunton and the Ageas Bowl. And I've given them a point system for which teams play there. But I've doubled the point system for Trent Bridge and for Taunton because I think they're going to be the 2 best batting tracks in the country. So Australia, they play 2 games at the Oval, so they get a point for each game they're playing there. They play 2 games at Trent Bridge, and they get 2 points for there, so that takes them to 6. Game at Old Trafford takes them to 7. 2 more points for the game they've got at Taunton takes them to 9. And they don't play at the Ageas Bowl. So they've got 9 points from this scoring system, which makes them second in all of the teams. Only the West Indies are better than them. So I really think that the top batsman, if you take out the grounds where most runs are going to be scored and teams that play there more often, I think that's how you can kind of limit this top batsman market down to a few. And that's how I've come up with Steve Smith.
And was there any other specific Australia team bets there? I think there was one that you mentioned which I think went over me.
Yeah, just Pat Cummins over 15.5 wickets. It's 5-6 at Corals or Ladbrokes. He's definitely going to play 9 games in the group stage. He should play 10 or 11 games, so he only has to average 1.5 wickets a game. If he feasts on the likes of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, the odd wicket here or there should see him past that. I think he'll get nearer 20 wickets.
All right. Well, obviously, great big things expected of Australia on this podcast. Let's talk about India now. Second favourites in the book with the bookmakers. What have you got to say about them, Kev?
Worthy second favourites, I think, purely because they're guaranteed to make the semi-finals as well. I don't think they're as strong as they were when they won the Champions Trophy here in 2013, for example. I don't think they're as strong as they were in 2017 when they lost to Pakistan in the final of that Champions Trophy. And I certainly don't think they're as strong as they were in 2011 when they won this tournament in their home conditions, but they're still a good side. Obviously, they've got some gracious batsmen. The top 3, probably the best top 3 in the world in terms of class. Maybe not power. England will probably have the edge on them in that. But, you've got Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, Virat Kohli. If you get bored of watching them three, well, you're just not a cricket fan. It's that simple. And they like to score their runs, not necessarily in a powerful way, but they're always putting up 300, 330, that kind of score. Something that their spinners will then squeeze teams down, and they've got a plethora of spinners, haven't they? Kuldeep Yadav, Yuzvendra Chahal, and Ravi Jadeja, to name some. If they've got a weakness, and it's a clear and obvious weakness, their lower order just, once you get through sort of Kohli, if Dhoni doesn't have a big tournament, Kedar Jadhav, I mean, he's been injury prone, he can be hit or miss. They put an awful lot of emphasis on Hardik Pandya, who can hit a cricket ball a long way, but you wouldn't call him a batsman. If their top four had a day off or a couple of days off at the wrong time, I can see them struggling a little bit. And they're still quite weak in the field. They're carrying a few passengers in the field as well, which I don't like. I like them in terms of they'll get to the semi-finals. I think that's an obvious shout. But I think there are better sides than them.
What would you say is the biggest weakness of the India team then overall?
Probably their lack of batting depth. They've been searching and searching and searching for this number 6, number 7 for an awful long time. They're going to go in this tournament with Hardik Pandya. I mean, how they didn't pick Rishabh Pant, I will never know. I mean, you only have to look at what he did in the IPL. I can't believe they've not picked him. But, they're going to play with the extra bowling all-rounder rather than batting all-rounder, and that's fair enough. That's their choice. But I do think that that's their weakness. If they need someone to elevate a score, I'm not sure they've got it.
Interesting stuff. Is there any specific team bets that you like in the Indian market or not?
Yeah, I'm going to take a batsman and a bowler. I mean, obviously the market centres around Kohli, doesn't it, with the bat, which is fair enough. But he's captain. He's under a lot of pressure. He's only really done it in England once, hasn't he? So I'm prepared to take him on with Rohit Sharma. Geezer has got 2 or 3 double hundreds in this format of the game. When he goes big, he goes very, very, very big. Classy batsman, good batsman, opening batsman. 9-2, you can get on Sharma. I think that's decent value. You could go 4-1 Shikhar Dhawan if you like, but it's just picking between the two if you're taking Kohli on. And I've just chosen Sharma at the prices. Jasprit Bumrah is probably the leading chance with the ball by virtue of the fact that he bowls at the death. But Kuldeep Yadav has got all sorts of mystery, left-arm Chinaman. He takes wickets in bunches in ODIs. He's 4-1 to be the top India batsman. And that's the price that will do me.
Interesting stuff. So a couple of specific picks there on India. And you think they're a lock-in for the top 4, don't you? It's just... After that, they might just not have quite enough potentially on the day in a knockout match.
Yeah, I think you're going to need 6 wins. 6 wins to make it into the top 4, and I can't see 4 teams beating them. So I think they're a lock in for that.
So England, Australia, India, strongly thinking on this podcast. They're 3 positions there. It does leave 1 spot available. South Africa, they are next in the betting. You can get them around 10-1. They don't have a great history in these tournaments, so do they? Even choking when they had better teams than this available to them. Do you think they deserve this position in the betting market, Kev?
No, I don't, Steve. No. Then their strengths are negated in this tournament for me. Their strength being their seam bowlers. No use having fantastic seam bowlers if you're bowling on roads. I mean, Kagiso Rabada's a fantastic bowler. Let's get that out there right now. May well be the best bowler in the world, potentially the best in the tournament. They play too many all-rounders for me for a start. I don't like their batting lineup. They need to bat around Hashim Amla, and if Hashim Amla doesn't go well, as it turns out, I think he will, but if he doesn't go well, there isn't an awful lot there. Aidan Markram played well for Hampshire in the 50-over competition over here, so he might be someone who can deliver the goods for them. But they're an aging side. I mean, you've got Faf du Plessis, you've got Amla, you've got de Kock, and you've got Duminy, who are all the wrong side of 30. They're a little bit younger with the ball, which is fair enough, but you've got to score runs in this tournament. You're not going to win this tournament or go deep if you're not regularly scoring 325 with the bat. And I just don't see where South Africa do it. Their batting runs out at 6 realistically. Then in comes the likes of Chris Morris. Okay, he can bat, but you wouldn't want him to be batting sort of 15, 20 overs at the end of an innings. And that's why I don't like them, really. I don't think they've got the batting depth. I don't think really that they've got the batting power. If Quinton de Kock doesn't have a fantastic series, I just think they're going to struggle to put up the runs. As I just said, you need 6 wins in all likelihood to make it through to the knockout stages. You might get through with 5 wins and a decent net run rate. But I just don't see where their runs are going to come from, Steve.
Yeah, it seems obviously Hashim Amla is a massive, massive player for them in this tournament. If he doesn't pull off a bunch of runs, then you think they're going to really, really struggle.
Yeah, because they need someone to bat around, don't they? They're not technically gifted like a Kohli or a Joe Root or a Kane Williamson, so they haven't got that other than Amla. The rest of them, they'll have one good innings in 5, but they'll need 2 or 3 of them per game if they're going to get up to the 330s, 340s that are going to challenge on these surfaces. And I just don't see. I could be proven wrong. Someone could surprise me with a really good tournament, but I think so many better sides than them in this tournament in these conditions.
Whereabouts in the group table do you think they're going to finish?
5th or 6th.
Okay, so the message on here is to swerve them in the outright market. But is there any South African team bets that are worth getting on?
Yeah, Hashim Amla is the one that they all have to bat around. Everyone else might well be taking risks with the bat, but Hashim Amla, he's the guy who goes out to get 80s and 90s and 100s at whatever pace he can do it at. A classy player in these conditions. He's played for near enough every county going, so he's got plenty of experience. I think he'll be the top batsman for them at 9-2. Quinton de Kock's the danger. Don't particularly like him over a long period of matches. And as I've just said, take after Faf du Plessis, there isn't really a lot else there.
That does look a big price, doesn't it? 9-2.
9-2 Betway for that.
That does look a big price, I must say. Let's move on to the next team. There was no other South African team.
No, just that one. No one stands out with the ball really, other than Rabada, but he's pretty short.
Yeah. So New Zealand, a similar price actually to South Africa, 10-1 in general. I've not heard much about them actually in the build-up to this World Cup, to be honest, at all. So tell us a bit more about how this team's shaping up for Cricket World Cup 2019.
Well, that's pretty much how they go about their business, isn't it? Under the radar, unknown, maybe with the exception of 4 years ago when obviously they were co-hosts and expected to do really, really well. It's hard to say, really. I mean, I think New Zealand may do better than South Africa, but I don't think they're absolute certainties. One thing is for certain. If Trent Boult and Tim Southee don't have good tournaments, New Zealand are dust. They can't do anything unless that new ball pair regularly take wickets. They've got one genuine classy batsman, haven't they? Kane Williamson. Martin Guptill is good in English conditions. He's played for plenty of counties. He knows what he's doing. But again, their genuine batsmen probably run out after Tom Latham at 5. Maybe that's harsh on Henry Nicholls at 6. But they lack a power hitter for me, apart from the top 2, Guptill and Munro, if that is indeed their opening partnership. After that, you've got Williamson, doesn't really hit a big ball. You've got Ross Taylor, doesn't really hit a big ball. Tom Latham doesn't really hit a big ball. Henry Nicholls doesn't really hit a big ball. Where are these 280s turning into 350s on a regular occasion? Yes, they've got a fantastic bowling attack. Trent Boult, Tim Southee, Lockie Ferguson, Ish Sodhi if the wickets do turn, although I don't expect them to very much. Jimmy Neesham's a decent enough all-rounder. But I keep on stressing it. You're going to have to score runs in this tournament. And, okay, they might be able to defend slightly less than par scores because Trent Boult's just a magician with the new ball. But if they don't take wickets, they're cannon fodder for me. And they faltered badly in the Champions Trophy 2 years ago, didn't they? Bangladesh beat them and got to the semi-final ahead of them. I can see it. I can see that happening again. I just don't think they'll be good enough over the course and distance.
They're always known for being a great team unit overall. Is that something because this is the tournament that's played over quite a long period of time? Is that something that could play into their advantage?
It is, but at the end of the day, you're still going to need to score runs. You're still going to need, well, they'll be fine to take wickets, but you're still going to need to score runs. And I just don't see their batting being strong enough. unless someone like a Ross Taylor or Tom Latham or even Henry Nicholls has a real standout tournament. But you're taking that as a real leap of faith. The other thing I say about New Zealand, there's only 3 grounds in the tournament that they don't play at. So there's an awful lot of travelling for them.
The opening partnership, which you mentioned, Munro, is he definitely dialed into play, do you think? Because, I mean,
No.
he's very hit and miss, isn't he? More missed than whenever I've seen him.
Yeah, no, he's not dialed into play. I would imagine he was the last choice of their opening pair. Yeah, it'll be Guptill and one other.
Where do you think they're going to finish in the table?
If South Africa finish 5th, they'll finish 6th. If South Africa finish 6th, they'll finish 5th. Maybe if they're out of the tournament early doors, or there's an injury to Trent Bolt or something, they could struggle and finish 7th. But somewhere in that ballpark, 5th, 6th, 7th.
So, individual team bets for New Zealand, is there anything going?
I'll take Kane Williamson on Steve, purely because Martin Guptill bats ahead of him, and also because he's been over in England an awful lot in recent years. I know Kane Williamson has as well, but his Yorkshire stint last season never really got off the ground, did it? So 7-2 Martin Guptill. Generally, he's very much like Hashim Amla. When he goes big, he goes very big, similar to Rohit Sharma in that way. I think he's a big price. I mean, if he doesn't go well, New Zealand can't go well anyway. So 7-2 Guptill against Kane Williamson. It's going to be one of them two. I'd have thought. I think Ross Taylor bat's a bit too low. So yeah, the values almost double the price. The values on Guptill.
All right, well, let's move on to a very interesting team next, and that is the West Indies. They're 20-1 to win the World Cup, but there's actually a lot of things we need to talk about with this team because you've got a lot of bets surrounding them. I've got written down here, Shea Hope, top tournament batsman at 33-1. I do believe you've got West Indies to hit the most sixes in the tournament, and Andre Russell as well in that market to hit the most sixes individually. So plenty to talk about. I mean, they have this perception of being a real enigma sort of side who like to hit the ball big and long and just go for it, but at the same time could collapse like a pack of cards at any given moment. Is that a true reflection of what this team is?
Yes, but I think Andre Russell's appearance in the lineup will change that. He'll bat 6 or 7, but he'll float up the order as and when needed. And well, I mean, he's in fantastic form, isn't he? He was battering the lights out of everything in the IPL. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, they can fall in a heap at any moment, this lot, but it's the last chance for Chris Gale, Darren Bravo, Andre Russell himself, one or two others to do anything on this world stage. I don't think they're going to be around for the World T20 next winter. So, you know, this is their last hurrah. Obviously, it's Chris Gale's last hurrah anyway. He retires from one-day cricket after this game. After this tournament. And I have a feeling that they'll go pretty well, but I don't like their bowling attack.
What is the problem with this bowling attack then? Who's going to be sending down the overs?
Well, there's no discipline to it. That's the first and foremost. To be fair to them, they warmed up for the tournament with a tournament in Ireland recently. They took on Ireland and Bangladesh, and Ireland scored 300 against them, which immediately isn't a good start. And in the final against Bangladesh, you know, Duckworth Lewis came into play, and Bangladesh were chasing nearly 10 and over for 24 overs. And they got there with a couple of overs to spare, and West Indies were sending down wides left, right, and centre, long hops, half volleys, and there's just no variation to them. You know, if they get hit, they bowl quicker, and that's not the way to go. There's no mystery to their spin. The only spinner they've got really of any note is Ashley Nurse, and he's just a military off spinner. And the other thing not to like about them is their fielding. I mean, it's atrocious. I mean, you just look at the age of them and automatically they're not going to be a good fielding side, but they're worse than that. They're terrible. They'll probably concede 25 or 30 runs in the field per game. And yeah, okay, Chris Gale can make that up. But what if he doesn't? Then they're in problems. They can score 400 West Indies quite easily. They showed that in that series against England at the start of the year. But they can concede it just as easily. And just like England, if they're chasing, you'd back them to win more than they lose. But if they don't chase, if they set a score, they fall in a heap. it's not going to take long to be beaten, I don't think.
No, it's. I can definitely see what you mean there in that regard for the West Indies. But you do like Shea Hope as a batsman to 33-1 in the top tournament batsman market. What do you see here that you reckon he can rack up a lot of runs? What position is he going to be batting?
3. He'll bat at 3. They'll go Gale, Lewis, and then him, I would imagine. What I like about him, if we go back to that point scoring system I mentioned during the Australia chat, West Indies actually come out on top with 10. They play twice at Trent Bridge, twice at Old Trafford, and they've also got a game at Taunton as well, where West Indies cricketers can hit the ball out of that ground one-handed, let alone 2. So he's got 5 genuine scoring games. He's got something like 5 centuries in his last 9 ODI innings. Okay, one of them was against Ireland, but let's not do them too much of a disservice because they did almost beat England at the start of the summer. So that's fair enough. He scored really well against England in that series in the West Indies, didn't he? Him along with Chris Gale. He's just a really good batsman. Unlike some in this West Indies lineup, he's actually got form in England, hasn't he? Round the corner from you, he scored that century at Headingley in the Test series to win that Test match. If I'm backing top batsman, Steve, I like guys who can score quickly, but I also like guys who are the glue in the innings, the ones that the power hitters bat around, and that's Shea Hope's role in this. I can see him getting a lot of 70s and 80s, and if you put 4 or 5 of them together, suddenly you've got 500 runs and you're in contention. I think he's a big prize at 33, especially when half of his games are going to be on grounds that you and I would fancy hitting a 6 at.
Let's move on to the 6s and then. West Indies most 6s, Andre Russell to hit the most 6s. What prices are those at? And I mean, it's a fairly self-explanatory thing that there's a team full of really big hitters, aren't they? But talk us through the prices and your specific thoughts on Russell for this market.
Well, 13-8 for the West Indies to hit the most 6s. That's a 2-horse race, England or West Indies. As I've mentioned, England don't play anywhere near as many matches on what I would call scoring grounds as the West Indies. The 2 smallest grounds in this tournament are Taunton and Trent Bridge. West Indies play there 3 times. England don't play at Taunton at all. They only play at Trent Bridge once. So West Indies have got 2 games on them quite comfortably. Trent Bridge actually appeals itself to left-handers as well. And West Indies have got an absolute plethora of those. So I expect West Indies to hit an awful lot of 6s. It might be that England overtake them if they have a semi-final and a final, but I'm prepared to take the risk with that. We've got Chris Gale, we've got Andre Russell, we've got Shimron Hetmyer, Jason Holder, Carlos Brathwaite. The list is endless for the people that can hit big 6s for the West Indies. Evan Lewis was another one. So I just think that they're probably the better value to England. Andre Russell, top scorer in terms of 6s in the Champions Trophy, 10-1 to do the job here. Chris Gale is actually shorter in the betting than him. I guess that's because he's going to bat higher up the order. But Gale's not going to be there for dancing. When he gets in there, he's just going to be swinging from the hip. And those 5 games at Trent Bridge, Taunton, Old Trafford, there's going to be some carnage. And I know they play around the corner from you at Headingley, Steve, so I hope you've got your house insured because, there's going to be some damage when they take on Afghanistan in that game.
They're a really exciting team to watch. And I've heard the term dark horse mentioned here with the West Indies. Would it shock you if they made the top 4?
No, it wouldn't. But their bowling attack has got to improve significantly on what we saw in Ireland, if that's going to be the case.
So where do you think they will finish overall then?
They'll be in that mix. Yeah, they'll be in that mix with New Zealand and South Africa, 5th, 6th, or 7th. They'll all probably be on the same sort of number of points. Then it comes down to net run rate.
Is there a bowling outright in this team that you got or not?
I thought about Andre Russell, but there's every chance he'll break down for one game or he won't bowl the overs that we want him to. So in the end, I've gone with Sheldon Cottrell. He's wound up just about every English batsman going, hasn't he, with his salute. I must admit, I find it quite funny, but there are people in world cricket that can't stand it. But I think we'll be seeing an awful lot of it in this series. Another left armour. As I said throughout this podcast, the left armers are going to go well in this tournament. He's another one of them. 5-1 he is to be the top bowler. I think it's Kemar Roach who's actually the favourite in this. I can't be having him at all. there isn't really a standout bowler, but I think because he's a left armer, Cottrell's going to play more games than not, unless of course he gets absolutely walloped around the park early doors. Got a little bit of variation as well. Bowls at the start of the innings, bowls at the death. I think there are worse bets out there than him at 5-1.
Let's move on to the next team then. That is Pakistan. They're 20-1, but I've got to be honest, from what I saw of them against England when they got a good old tonking, I wouldn't want to be backing them. And I mean, what do you make of Pakistan?
Well, ironically, before that series, if you'd said to me, how do Pakistan play their cricket, I would have said they plod with the bat and they're a dynamite bowling attack. But what we saw in that series was completely the opposite. They were belting balls left, right, and centre, but they couldn't keep the ball on the square for love nor money. So, with that in mind, I probably agree with your assessment. I think an awful lot's being played on the fact that they won the Champions Trophy 2 years ago. They're nowhere near as strong now, as evidenced by the fact that they've had to go back to Wahab Riaz, who hadn't played an ODI since then. So that in itself says they're struggling with the ball. Mohammed Amir, there's this really weird stat doing the round that I must admit I should have checked before we started this podcast to get it absolutely right. But it's something like 12 ODIs where he hasn't taken a single wicket in the power play. So if he's the new ball bowler, immediately they're going to be on the back foot. Okay, you give that statistic a little bit of substance by virtue of the fact that he plays an awful lot of his ODI cricket out in the UAE, where, you know, pitches out there are actually more concrete than the roads that they drive in on outside. But even so, it's not good. They're really struggling with the ball. Actually, they've got some eye-catching players with the bat now, haven't they? Imam ul-Haq looked really good in that series against England. Fakhar Zaman, well, if he is the man, then they could go well. Babar Azam, who I'll come on to in a minute, and actually Asif Ali, who I've got complete respect for after he played the series against England, even though his daughter died of cancer halfway through it. And one or two others that can do the job. Actually, this Pakistan side, they all of a sudden they fit the need for this tournament. They're power packed with the bat, but I would like to see a little bit more from them with the ball. Hassan Ali would have to have a really good tournament if they're going to contend. I actually think they might be worth, just if you've got a bit of loose change in your pocket, chuck it at them to finish bottom at 20-1. They've just lost to Afghanistan in a warm-up game, haven't they? Don't think that'll do confidence any good. There are worse 20-1 bets out there than that, even though they should be good enough to finish 6th or 7th.
20-1 to finich bottom, yeah, that's an interesting one actually. Things start to go really pear-shaped for this side. Is there any other Pakistan bets that you like the look of?
Yeah, 8-11 under 4.5 wins. Like you just said, if the wheels come off, they come off spectacularly with this lot. So if you're having a decent bet on the tournament, one or two decent bets, then you'll do a lot worse than that. I can only see 4 sides that I would say that there'll be favourites against. If there are even favourites against them, I wouldn't make them favourites against Bangladesh, but I'm guessing that they will be when they go into that game. So you've got Afghanistan, Bangladesh, West Indies, and Sri Lanka. And if they were to slip up in one of those, suddenly they're going to have to beat 2 of South Africa, New Zealand, England, Australia, and India. I just don't see that happening. So I think that 8-11 is safe, and 2-1 Babar Azam to be their top scorer. He is by far and away the best batsman in this team. Much like the Hashim Amla mould, he's the glue that they bat around. Just signed for Somerset, so he's obviously taking it seriously, and he's the one to beat. 2-1 top batsman Babar Azam.
So we're into the rags now in terms of prices anyway. Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Afghanistan. But Bangladesh, as I mentioned at the start of this podcast, you're thinking may well be a big dark horse here. You back them to win the tournament 125-1. That's each way, 2 places. But probably a more prominent bet is for them to reach the semi-final, to finish in the top 4 at 14-1. Bangladesh. Now, there'll be some people listening who are just, well, they're not really sort of in-depth cricket followers. And they may think, what the hell is he on about? Bangladesh? You know, with this reputation of being a crap cricketing nation. I think it originates from because they were so poor early doors. But they have dramatically improved, haven't they? Yeah,
they have. I mean, just look at the improvement that they made. 2015, quarterfinal, beat England in the to get to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. Lost in the quarterfinals, but that's fine. That was their first sort of major breakthrough. 2017 made the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy. 2018 made the final of the Asia Cup, coming past Sri Lanka and Pakistan to do that. 2019 they've just won a tournament against Ireland and West Indies. This is an emerging side and an improving side, and actually an awful lot of their players are at their peak right now. Tamim Iqbal's an established player on the world scene. Shakib Al Hassan is regularly ranked the best all-rounder in the world. Mushfiqur Rahim, the young wicketkeeper, is as classy a batsman as you're going to find. They've got a death bowler in Mustafizur Rahman, as I mentioned right at the start of this podcast. A couple of really good spinners, Mahedi Hassan, Shakib himself. Mashraf Mortaza, the captain, he gets a good tune out of this side actually, and they've got a couple of power-packed hitters down the order. They needed something like I was watching the final of that Tri-Nations, and they needed something like 94 off of something daft like 47 or something like that. And they lost their fifth wicket, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's the end of that. Then there's no one else to come." And Mahadek Hussain came in and he blasted a 20-ball 50 out of nowhere against the West Indies pace attack, and it just shows that if they do get into trouble, they have got a couple of batsmen who can get them out of issues. They've got the form in the book. They made the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy here in this very country 2 years ago. They've only got to emulate that to get that 14-1 bet in, and then from there onwards, you're looking for one more win to get, what would it be, 62.5 to 1 on the place. 2 more wins to get 125 to 1 full payout. I think bookmakers are taking a massive risk with this lot. They've got everything they need. They've got a classy opener. They've got a high-scoring opener in Tamim Iqbal. They've got 2 genuinely good middle-order batsmen, Shakib, Mushfiqur Rahim. They've got a death bowler. They've got a spinner. They tick an awful lot of boxes. They tick more boxes than the 4 sides we've just mentioned beforehand. Yet they're, what are they, 6 times the price? 12 times the price?
I mean, bookmakers aren't stupid, are they? Reputation?
Because you just said it, because they're still an emerging side. They don't really play against the top sides very often, do they? I mean, how many times have they played England in a test series over here? Not very often. They're still having to play most of their cricket against Zimbabwe and the Asian sides. But that doesn't mean to say that they can't beat this lot. As I said right back at the start of the podcast, you're looking for them to win 6 games. So they could lose to Australia, they could lose to India, they can lose to England. If they beat the others, they're through to the semi-finals, and there's nothing nobody can do about it.
How do you think the other nations, the bigger nations, will be treating Bangladesh? Do they see them as a walkover these days, or is there...
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No, because I mean, like I just mentioned, quarterfinalists in the last World Cup. I mean, let's also point out that last World Cup was in Australia and New Zealand. So if they're the price that they are because of the English conditions, if we use quotation marks around that, well, they just made the quarterfinals in equally alien conditions 4 years ago. They're a better side now, may I just add. But I just can't get away from the fact that, and I keep on saying it, they made the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy, and they didn't roll over for India in that semi-final. They gave India a mighty good game. Tamim Iqbal, if he starts scoring runs, he can score them at an electric rate. In the Bangladesh, I don't know I can't remember, it's Super League or Premier League, whatever their 2020 competition is called. In the final, he belted 100. He's a really top-class batsman, and he was in really good form in that series in Ireland recently. Yeah, it can only be reputation, Steve, because if you look down their starting 11, 1 to 11, okay, they might lack the genuinely standout big names like your Chris Gales, your Virat Kohlis, but they've got some mighty effective performance, and it ain't going to take a lot for this lot to be in the top 4.
Tamim Iqbal, 66 to 1, top tournament batsman. I always remember him. Didn't he score a century at Lords once in a Test match? Something like that, anyway.
Well, he was almost at a century by lunch, wasn't he? That's how quickly he scores.
Yeah, everyone was like shocked, but a Bangladeshi batsman could get a century at Lords in a Test match, but he's still knocking around, and a big price.
Well, he's in his prime now as well, Steve, and opening batsman. I didn't say right back at the start, when you're betting on your top batsman markets in this tournament, do not go any lower than anyone who bats at number 3. They're just not going to get enough game time over 9 matches. You want an opener or a number 3. Tamim Iqbal ticks the box. He opens the batting. He's a really, really good batsman. And like I said, he made the century in the final of that Bangladesh Premier League. He's got a decent opening partner now in Sumi Asaka, who was playing some really good cricket in Ireland. I really can't, they might flatter to deceive and fall on their ass, but just look at the potential and the improvement that they've made in the last 4 years. Quarterfinals, semi-finals, Champions Trophy, final Asia Cup. The next thing they've got to do is win a tournament, and they're more than capable.
And the Fizz, 100 to 1. I mean, it's a big price and an outshot, but you think he could get a few wickets here? What's he going to like in English conditions?
Yeah, I'm not really banking on him on the conditions front. I'm just banking on him because he's a mighty good death bowler. Maybe not as good as he was 2 years ago, but he's a good death bowler, got good variation, a good slower ball, really good Yorkers, hits the block hole. He'll be picking up wickets at the end of the innings. If Bangladesh do go deep, excuse me, he'll get the extra game in the semi-final. Hopefully, from our point of view, he'll be playing Australia in the final. He'll get the extra 2 games to pick up any more wickets to beat, 1 or 2 others. I mean, you're getting 5 places for your 100 to 1. He's definitely going to play in every match unless he's injured because he's their best bowler. Doesn't always take the new ball, but again, I don't necessarily mind that. But he'll definitely be bowling at the death, and that's the time where the wickets are going to be picked up quite cheaply.
And are there any specific Bangladesh team bets that you've got in mind here or not?
Yeah, I'm going to take Tamim to be their top batsman as well. 5 to 2. That's just a little bit too big. If I could only get 2 to 1 on it, I probably wouldn't have bothered. But he's classy enough to deliver at 5 to 2. If he didn't top score in the Champions Trophy 2 years ago, he was very close to top scoring. In fact, I'm pretty sure Shikhar Dhawan top scored, and I think Tamim Iqbal ran him close. So he can score in these conditions. Make no mistake about that.
And bowling, anything or not?
The only thing that puts me off back in the Fizz in this market is, if he doesn't play all the games, he'd need to play all the games, and with bowlers, they can always go lame at any moment. So I'd rather just have a little dabble on him outright rather than a bigger bet, and he misses games.
Now, it can't be too many years ago that Sri Lanka were in a World Cup final, weren't they? Was it over in India? Can't remember what year that was, Kev, but it wasn't that less than a decade ago anyway.
2011, yeah.
There's a large variation in odds on Sri Lanka, short as 50 to 1 and as big as 150 to 1. So, I mean, in a way, it's quite shocking to see a nation like this so low in the odds. But it's a state of where their game is right now, isn't it?
Yeah, stick a note on both those prices. They're not runners.
Well, let's talk. I mean, you do actually have an outright bet based on a Sri Lankan player, and that's Lasith Malinga. But is he very much the lone star in this team?
No, there's him and Angelo Matthews. But in terms of the ball, yeah, it's all about Malinga. I mean, if Malinga doesn't go well, then kiss it goodbye. I just think that's a big price, Steve. 66 to 1. I mean, we know all about Malinga's death bowling. England played a ODI series in Sri Lanka, didn't they, last winter? And he still shone on that occasion. I think he took a 5-er in one of the games. He's not at his best. He's not the bowler that he was, but he was still going okay in the IPL. There's enough sort of, I don't want to call them rags, but, the likes of Afghanistan, Pakistan, maybe even to an extent West Indies if they're collapsing, that he can get stuck into. And at the death, even the best still can't face him at the death. So, we only need a couple of two of those really good performances from him. Say he gets a 4 for somewhere, a 5 for somewhere. That's 9 wickets. Probably looking at, 16 wickets to get a place in the tournament. So he only needs 1 more in every other match that he plays. Voila, job done. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that he delivers a run there. But in terms of Sri Lanka, then no. I think the best thing you could do for Sri Lanka is back to finish bottom, actually, 3 to 1.
Yeah, you've already backed Pakistan in this market, a bigger 20 to 1, but this is the team you fancy more to be.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the 2 minnows, if you like, in this tournament, Sri Lanka and Afghanistan, we've got recent form, haven't we? Because they played each other in the Asia Cup last year. Afghanistan performed better in that tournament than Sri Lanka. So it just stands to reason that Afghanistan, a team on the rise, who we're going to come on to in a minute, will perform better than Sri Lanka, a team on the decline, having already done that. It wasn't even 12 months ago. So, it just looks at. I think Afghanistan are odds on in the market.
Yeah.
So it's just a value bet. I mean, realistically, if a team doesn't win 2 matches, they're going to finish bottom. I can't see 2 games that Sri Lanka are going to win unless Malinga does some destructive stuff.
Are you more concerned about their batting or bowling then, as an overall?
Oh, there's a question. Bowling.
Right.
Bowling. I think they've got a couple of canny operators with the bat. I mean, Angelo Matthews is still real good class, but they've got the likes of Kusal Mendes, Pereira, even Karunaratne, the guy who's been made captain even though he hasn't played an ODI until they played Scotland last week. They've got capable batsmen. I don't think they've got enough batsmen to score 300, 320, 330 regularly. But yeah, if you're asking me what's their strength as opposed to their weakness, the batting's the strength. The weakness is the bowling, with the exception of Malinga's death bowling.
And they're not a great fielding side from what I know of them either, are they?
That's the other thing. They're an aging side, aren't they? So they're going to concede runs in the field. There really isn't a lot to like about Sri Lanka.
It does sound horrific, I must say. Must be painful for their fans who, I mean, there's been so many great cricketers down the line. Is the potential of, say, a surprise emerging star who could surprise everyone in the team? There's not even that.
I don't think so. I mean, it would have been Akila Dhananjaya, but he's playing for Sri Lanka A against India A at the minute, so he ain't going to be doing nothing. No, I don't see one.
Well, very miserable analysis and prognosis for Sri Lanka on this podcast.
However, Steve, there is one more bet for Sri Lanka that stands out to me, and that's Angelo Matthews to be their top batsman at 5-1. He's the only truly world-class batsman in their order, and he's still good enough to deliver the goods on his day. Pereira might be the coming of age, Mendes too, but don't rule out Matthews.
And that's 5-1.
Yeah.
That does sound a big price. He is a quality operator, I must say. They seem to handle him badly, the Sri Lankan cricket board. Don't know why, but he is absolutely at this stage. That looks a big price to me, I must say.
Well, he's a veteran that they're trying to phase out, but the problem is they've got no one better, so he keeps on coming back.
All right, the last thing we're going to talk about then, and that is Afghanistan. I'm sure there's quite a lot of people listening to this podcast who know absolutely sod all about this team, but there's been a few guys in the IPL who've impressed from this nation. They qualified legitimately. They're expected to be minnows, but I mean, tell us a bit more about this team, Kev. Are they going to surprise?
Yeah, I think they are. Not to the terms that they're going to qualify for the semi-finals or anything like that. But I mean, if you're expecting them to be thrashed in every game, you need to think again. That's not going to happen because they've got a really good bowling attack, led by Rashid Khan, who, like you say, has been in the IPL. Everyone knows about him. He actually played for Sussex in this country. That's the superstar status that he carries. Mohammed Nabi as well, also played in this country for Leicestershire, also in the IPL. 2 really good spin bowlers. This side are going to be much better when this World Cup returns to Asia. Let's get that out there. It's just an obvious thing. But Rashid won't go for many runs in this tournament. In fact, teams are going to sit on him now. They're not going to take risks against him because he's too good. Half of them can't read him anyway. Nabi's a good bowler. They've also got another spinner, Mujib-ur-Rahman, who he can be brilliant or he can be terrible. But more often than not, he's very good with the new ball. So that's handy. If there's a weakness in the side, it's their batting. And I think that's often the case with a lot of these emerging sides. They do have Mohammad Shahzad, who is, the most all-or-nothing cricketer you've ever seen in your life. He's just as likely to hit 6 sixes in and over as he is 6 ducks. He's exceptional or ordinary, but there's 1 or 2 other batsmen that can go well for them. Not maybe with the class and the sort of eye-catching power that Shahzad has, but who can nudge 40s and 50s and get the ball rolling and things. You mentioned that they qualified, and that was a real high pressurized tournament actually, because Zimbabwe hosted that tournament. They would have been expected to get into this by virtue of the fact that they hosted it. Afghanistan outqualified them. Ireland too. Ireland and Scotland wanted to be in this World Cup. They outqualified them, and they weren't really conditions that suited them. So just on their bowling alone, I think Afghanistan will be competitive. If they don't finish bottom, they'll finish second bottom. But yeah, don't be taking them on handicaps or anything like that in this tournament, because they're more than capable.
How do you think they're going to fare? They're getting 9 matches on the world stage. It's the first time that's really ever happened to them.
Yes and no. Don't forget they're regulars in the Asia Cup, so they often play India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. So it's only really England, Australia, West Indies to a lesser point, New Zealand, that they're not used to playing. The other 4 teams they play on a regular basis. It's probably only the English conditions, but as I said, their key bowlers have all played for English counties, so they're used to that as well. They're not dark horses or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. They're going to lose an awful lot more than they win, but they can put up some decent scores. I mean, if they put up 260, 270, yeah, they'll probably be losing totals, but teams probably won't get there with too many balls to spare, because not many teams are going to score more than 40 off Rashid Khan's 10 overs. Mohammed Nabi can take wickets. They've got a decent quick bowler as well, Zadran, and don't write them off completely. There'll be times where they cover handicaps, that is for sure.
Well, we certainly hope they go well in this tournament, because it's more chance than of Sri Lanka and Pakistan finishing bottom. So in terms of individual team bets for Afghanistan, is there a few that have caught your eye?
Just the one, actually, Steve. The top bowler market's all about Rashid Khan. But as I've said, if you look back to the IPL, teams sat on him in the IPL. They're more than happy to just play out his 4 overs for 20, 24, but don't give him wickets. And that's the way I see it going in this tournament as well. Teams will nudge him, they'll nerdle him for 40, 45, knowing that they can get 65, 70, 80 off the quicker bowlers and the other bowlers that are in the tournament. So I think that opens the door to Mohammed Nabi, who's actually probably a cleverer bowler than Rashid Khan in terms of his variation of flight, length and everything else. But obviously Rashid Khan's mystery is really hard to pick, but if they don't score off Rashid Khan, they're going to have to attempt to score off Mohammed Nabi, so he might pick up a few cheap wickets that way. As I mentioned, he's played in England, so he knows the wickets that he's going to be playing on. That's 9-2 he is. I think that's big value in what could well be a 2-horse race.
All right, well, we talked about all the teams. I don't think there's any other special bets that we have to mention, is there?
Nope, I've given you all the bets that I've come up with in this tournament, mate.
That is all the bets. Now, we need to mention your own website, because that is a great focal point for information on this tournament. Tell us a bit about that.
www.kevsatsportsbets.com. I will be covering every match with a written preview there. Obviously, I'll be flagging up every bet that I have here, but an awful lot of things like requested bets and things like that go up, right up close to the game. So if there's anything that catches my eye, they're more likely to appear on my website than the podcasts, because we're aiming to get the podcasts out early for you guys to get on the bets at the best possible prices. So do have a look at that. If you're interested in any of the other sport that's coming up, and not just other sport, but also the other cricket, there's still the English domestic season going on alongside this World Cup. I cover all of that on the website. So it's a decent port of call for all your betting needs.
Yeah, the county championship is going alongside the World Cup, isn't it? With loads of outgrounds being used, it may not be as glamorous, but there's winners to be found there. So if you're interested in the county championship, then get yourself to Kev's website. But we finish this outright preview now. We will be back. We're going to be covering every single game, and we're going to hopefully get the podcasts out at least 24 hours before the start of every game. So the match previews will be much shorter than this one, probably 10-15 minutes specifically. But yeah, we hope you all enjoyed this particular podcast for all the bets. Some loads of outright bets there. Hopefully many of them will come in. There's plenty of value to be had. But we look forward to covering the whole tournament, don't we, Kev?
We absolutely do, Steve. Yeah, 48 games of cricket are about to embark upon us. And, what a great summer we're in for.
Well, All Sports Betting Podcast is back in action. So thanks very much for listening. And we will catch you again ahead of the first match, which is England against South Africa. So goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me too.